Afternoon, folks. A live video from me today. Those who don't know me, my name's Nick Bell. I'm the host of Efficiency and Property Investing podcast. I'm also an entrepreneur, property investor myself. Been doing this for a few years now. I've just been catching up on some news, and those who've watched some of my videos before know I have a big issue with these charities that are demanding unreasonable requests over the Renters' Rights Bill. In the past, I've looked at shelter, etc. Well, this one is an article on Property 118, so all credit to them for this story. The story is, renters in England are preparing to assert themselves more forcefully against landlords and letting agents when their rents are increased, the survey reveals. The Generation Rent, now Generation Rent are a private renters association, is the best way of putting it. From a survey of nearly 1,000 tenants show that the upcoming Renters' Rights Bill will embolden renters. It says that 68% of respondents expressed a greater willingness to dispute rent rises, while 62% will flag up tenancy problems. Hey, I've got no problem with people flagging up tenancy problems. The survey also reveals that 86% want rent controls to be brought in. Well, they tried that in Scotland, didn't work. And let's remember, I'll go on to this a little bit later. I feel a rant coming on. So, Generation Rent said, the upcoming reforms being introduced by the Renters' Rights Bill are extremely popular amongst private renters. I bet they are, yeah. 68% said that it would make it more likely they would challenge unfair rent rises. So what is an unfair rent rise? I don't know. Above the market rate. Now, my rents are always slightly below the market rate, and that's how I keep them as an investor, as a businessman, as a business. So, yeah, it's fair enough. If you want to travel, if someone's going over the market rate, challenge it. But, there needs to be some sense to this as well. And 62% said they would tell landlords about tenancy issues, and 60% said they would contact their local council about issues with the home. Yeah, okay. As long as you've raised it with your landlord first and they've done nothing, go to your local council. But there needs to be a process here, doesn't there? It needs to be flagged up with the landlord first. You need to go through that process. Generation Rent goes on to say, these are extremely positive numbers and indicate that renters are already looking forward to being able to use more of their rights and feel more empowered once Section 21 finishes. So Section 21 is the no fault eviction thing. It allows you to evict tenants without fault, with 2 months' notice. The important ban, Section 21, and so unsurprisingly, 83% of those questioned welcomed the abolition of Section 21 no-fault evictions. That's critically important, with 69% anticipating a beneficial effect on their lives. Hey, if it's a no-fault eviction, I can see the point there. As long as landlords retain that right to get their property back if they need to sell it or whatever they want to do with it, live in it, etc. Yeah. I'm happy with that. Tenant perceptions of eviction motives reveal concerns, with nearly a quarter believing landlords evict to boost rents. Well, I can't say that doesn't happen. I wouldn't do that. If I'm evicting, I have the Rob Moore way of buying property, buy, hold, die. So I'll buy it, hold it until I die. So I'm not going to evict someone to sell it. If I evict someone, there must be there'll be an issue with it. I've never had to evict someone yet. I hope I never have to. Let's see what happens. However, I would not do it. That's outside my morals. To raise rents, to evict to raise rents. I think it's that is awful. I think there is a small majority of landlords that maybe don't do that, but it's not the majority as usual. Just like it's a small majority of tenants that cause problems. A similar proportion suspects property sales as the driver. It may well be with landlords getting out of the market because of EPCs, because of the Renters' Rights Bill. They want to sell it. and they want to get rid of the properties. Yeah, and it's easy to sell without the tenant there. It's a fact, They're not going to sell it as an investment property. They want to sell it to get the best money out of it. And if you're liquidising your assets, that's what you're going to do. You might not feel it's right if a tenant's been living there for a long time, but landlords don't do this lightly. They're not doing it because they want to, because if they sell all the property, they've then got to navigate capital gains tax, etc. And then a fifth point to avoidance of maintenance responsibilities. So they reckon they're evicting people because they want to avoid the maintenance of it. I think a very small majority maybe. I don't think the vast majority of landlords would do that. Only a small fraction, just 10%, pointed to rent arrears, and even fewer mentioned antisocial behaviour. What yet? I'm not being funny. You're surveying renters. They're going to say that. You're not surveying landlords. You must get something totally different. But let's get a bit of perspective on that. So, generation rent goes on. Tenants want rent controls. Tenants apparently want more action, particularly rent controls, which is absent from the current bill. Well, it's absent for a reason, because they tried it in Scotland, didn't work. The survey found 86% of renters believe such measures would significantly improve their circumstances. Well, of course it would, because they're paying less rent. I don't put my rent up above market rates. I keep my rent below market rates. And most of the landlords I know do exactly the same thing, because we want to have long-term tenants, because that's best for our properties. We maintain them properly. We want good tenants. We keep the rents below market rate. So, generation rent is pushing for restrictions on in-tenancy rent increases to lower the inflation or wage growth, tenant relocation, support for unjust evictions, or limits on guarantor demands. A lot of bollocks again, really, to me. In-tenancy rent increases. You're on a rolling tenancy once you've been done your 12 months or however it's changed now. I use a letting agent, to be honest with you. I don't want any of the hassle with tenants. I don't deal with tenants. My letting agent is instructed to do a rent review once a year and keep it below market rates, and put it past me first. Unjust evictions, support on that. Limits on guarantors, no. I think we need guarantors, If you're renting from someone with no credit history, you need a guarantor. You've got no history on that person. You're not just going, would you give them car finance without looking into the history? No. That's bullshit. Sorry, I'm swearing. It said rent restrictions would do a world of good in stopping unfair rent rises. Again, this needs to be put in perspective. The vast majority of landlords don't charge unfair rents. The government should look at the Renters' Rights Bill to stop in-tenancy rent restrictions increasing faster than wages and the cost of living, which is what they were going on before. It was a bit muddled up. It also wants a database for eviction notices to curb the abuse of the process. So what they're saying is they want a database of landlords that evict tenants. Well, do you know what I would like? I'd like a database of tenants that have been evicted for breaches of tenancy agreement, antisocial behaviour, damage to property, etc. But we won't get it. The survey also notes that 61% of tenants have, over the past year, faced higher rents, with the median rises hitting £80 monthly. I can't argue, I don't know the figures. You've surveyed 1,000 people. Where you surveyed these people, I don't know. You need to have done a general cross-section. You might have just surveyed 1,000 people in the same town or whatever. So without knowing the parameters of the survey, you can't give it any credence. Renters also claim that barriers to new tenancy, such as guarantor demands and upfront rent requests, are also rising. Yeah, I want a guarantor. If you've got no credit history, I want a guarantor. I want to know that rent is going to be paid if you don't pay it. You've got no credit history. I don't know who I'm dealing with. You might think that sounds unreasonable. It's a business. I'm here for a business. I need to make a profit. It's a business for me. Okay? We're not charities, we're businesses. We do want to make a profit, and we want to make a reasonable profit, not an unfair profit. So that's a bit. Then I went on Generation Rent's website and looked at their campaigns. And they've got one here, and what makes your house feel like a home? For those lucky enough to own their own home, it might feel freshly washed, blah, blah, blah. For private renters, however, one answer dominates: protection from eviction. Well, I think the vast majority of renters aren't afraid of eviction. I think you need to do a massive survey to find that out. Currently, private renters can be evicted without reason and given just 2 months to pack up and move out. Only when private renters are better protected from evictions, this is generation rent, can we have confidence our houses can be our homes. That's what the tenants are saying. On the 17th of July 2024, King Charles announced a new Renters' Rights Bill which will abolish Section 21 no-fault evictions. I've got no problem with abolishing no-fault evictions as long as the mechanism is there for us to get the property back, and if we need to. False evictions, yeah, we need to be able to do those. So, generation rent here are asking, give tenants 4 months' notice to find a new home rather than 2 months we currently have. What are your thoughts? Protecting tenants from a no-fault eviction for the first 2 years of a tenancy. Well, hang on, they're just scrapping no-fault evictions, so, rather than only the first 6 months. Well, no, they're actually scrapping no-fault evictions. Stopping landlords who evict tenants on no-fault grounds from reletting the property for 12 months if they change their mind, rather than 3 months the government is planning. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this, people? You know, requiring a landlord to pay tenant 2 months' rent to help find a new place. That's a load of bollocks, isn't it? So, what you'll see is increased rents to cover that. Landlords will put rents up if they know they might have to pay 2 months' rent at the end, and it'll cover that 2 months' rent. So, you want to keep rents down, then you want something put in place that will increase rents. These people need to have a VIP check on themselves. Requiring landlords to list the property for sale with a sitting tenant for 6 months before seeking an eviction. I think that goes down to what the landlord needs. Now, if the landlord wants to sell out the tenant, he wants to sell out the tenant, and he can do. And that should be maintained. I know it's a tenant's home. A landlord wants to achieve the best price he can for his property. And it's not an easy choice for a landlord to sell up. A lot of them are now exiting the market, so there's going to be less properties around for people. They're exiting the market because of changes to EPCs, and they're worried about the cost of compliance with the EPCs and the Renters' Rights Bill. They're worried about this. A lot of landlords can't deal with this anymore. The Labour government have got the stick on us. They're going to beat us with this stick until we've got nothing, no money left coming into us. And it does feel a bit like that at the moment. There needs to be a bit of common sense here. Like I said, I was going to have a little bit of a rant, and I have. So that's generation rent. The article was on Property 118. You need to have your say on that consultation. I think I've said this before, consultation ends first week in May. If you haven't had your say, get on that consultation, because groups like this are trying to skew it. And I'm not saying renters don't need protections. I'm saying landlords also need some sort of protection, and there needs to be a bit of middle ground here. The extremes are saying a landlord has to pay a renter 2 months' rent to find a new property. I'm sorry, we're in a business, we're not a charity. If you're a charity, maybe. If you're a local housing association, maybe. But as a private landlord who runs a business, this is a business. I have to make a profit at the end of the day. I want to make a reasonable profit. I don't want to make an unfair profit. I keep my rents below market rate. As the majority of landlords I know do that. And that needs to be taken into account. So, people, have your say on this consultation. Because these people in different charities like Shelter, Generation, Rent, etc., they're trying to rob us blind. And that's my feeling on it. And that pay the tenant 2 months' rent is the biggest red flag to me in the world. So, anyway, I think I've ranted on long enough. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Fill the consultation in. I'll try and find a link of it in the comments. Please like and listen and share my podcast, Property Efficiency and Property Investing. Almost got the words wrong there. Efficiency and Property Investing. New episodes out every Monday. I think this week is on retrofit EPCs, etc. Which, if you don't know what a retrofit EPC is, go and listen to the podcast. Next week, I think I'm doing changes to EPCs that have just happened. I'll have to check. I can't remember. I sent it through to the production crew yesterday, and they said, yeah, it's going live next Monday. I can't remember the title of it, but always interesting. Hope there's always good information for you guys out there. So, efficiency in property investing. Please like, subscribe, and share. It costs you nothing to share. It means a huge amount to me, and I'm really grateful for that support. Have a great evening. Keep moving forward.